Good day, everybody. This is David Fry of JT&S. We're going to talk about the September program of chainsaw and line clearance safety. Some interesting facts about chainsaw injuries. 36,000 people are treated in hospital emergency rooms from using chainsaws. The average chainsaw injury requires 110 stitches. And the medical costs for chainsaw injuries exceed $350 billion a year. And I'll have to say I went back and had to double check that dollar figure, and that is correct. I just thought that was astronomical. The accidents are very serious. Most of the time a chainsaw doesn't tend to just cut. It seems to rip and tear the flesh the way it reaches and gets another bite with each tooth that passes over the bar. Head injuries. Upper arm, upper torso is going to be mostly due to kickback situations, not controlling the tip of the bar. If you'll notice that the left hand, left knee, and left foot and leg is where most of the injuries occur, due to most people using the right-handed chainsaw, so to speak. I guess is the way people hold with the right hand and the trigger. And so that puts the other opposite side of the body at most risk. So it's pretty definite that most injuries are going to happen to the left side of the body. Dangers of a chainsaw: the 600 teeth pass one spot on the chain bar in 1 second. The newer, bigger chainsaws that we're using nowadays just cut at such a higher RPM than some of the older ones did. It seems like they cut more on speed instead of power, like some of the old heavier model, early dated chainsaws. It really took its toll during the day's time. With each new tool or piece of equipment, always start by reading the operator's manual. Follow the guidelines set forth in the operations manual. It'll probably increase the life of whatever particular piece of equipment you're using, and also make it safer. Probably not the best person in the world to talk about suggesting reading operators manuals, but I have went back. I have read operators manuals on some equipment that I've had, and I did learn something. Regardless of what you know, I bet if you read the owner's manual through and through, you'd probably learn a little something. So it's twofold. It makes the equipment safer, and also you can learn some maintenance or some tips that may make your equipment last longer. Ppe Hard Hat. According to OSHA, it should have ANSI Z89.1 Class B. There is restrictions on hard hats that are worn with possible contact, electrical contact. So there is guidelines. It has to be this stamp from OSHA for us to wear those in the field. Eye protection Z87.1. Need to be careful about wearing our designer glasses. Questionable UV protection, and most definitely probably not as good a shatter protection as a standard pair of safety glasses for our trade, for the electrical trade. Electrical trade's ANSI Z87.1 must be what we wear. Leg chaps, cumbersome, hot in the summertime. Kind of stiff and hard to motivate in, but chaps are a must according to OSHA and APPA rule. And an APPA rule or OSHA rule is the minimum. If you have more stringent company policies that are in addition to OSHA or APPA manual, those are recognized as well. Anything that supersedes, like I said, OSHA is the baseline as far as our PPE and governing rules. Leg protection: the employer shall provide at no cost to the employee and assure that each employee who operates a chainsaw wears leg protection. Constructed as cut with resistant material. If you have a nick or a cut or an incident with a pair of chaps, those chaps should be replaced immediately. And others warned, do not wear once the chaps have came in contact with a moving chainsaw. Leg protection should cover the full length of the thigh to the top of the boot on each leg to protect against any contact with the moving chainsaw. There's a couple of exceptions for leg protection and wearing chaps as a climber. If the employee demonstrates that a greater hazard is posed by wearing leg protection, then you don't have to wear them. And of course, if you're in an elevated, rotating work platform, such as a bucket, but the saw should still be, a running saw should still be carried on the outside of the bucket. No way, shape, form, or fashion should I see any reason why a chainsaw would be running have you had it inside the bucket with you. Just an example of incorrect and correct way to wear chaps. You've got the shirt tail out. You've got the tennis shoes on. Just lots of things going on right there that shouldn't be. Work gloves. Protective gloves are a must. You probably already wear gloves, working around wooden poles and stuff. And then plus cutting right-of-ways. Definitely need to wear protective gloves to keep from abrasions. We should wear them for severe abrasions, cuts, lacerations, and according to OSHA, they must be worn. Foot protection, a good pair of boots, keeps your feet dry, good footing. Sometimes cleated boots are a lot better depending on terrain, but a good pair of boots is very important if you're going to use a chainsaw. Offers a lot more protection than these tennis shoes we see in this slide right here. Hearing protection is also very important with the chainsaw. This is just a little chart that shows the duration. 8 hours at 90 decibels is the maximum limit you should be exposed to. As far as OSHA standards are with the chainsaw, it requires that the chainsaw sound level be at or below 108 decibels at the operator's ear and at or below 84 decibels, at least 50 foot from a running chainsaw. Hearing protection, of course, the foam earplugs work really well. No doubt that the earmuffs is probably going to be the best source of hearing protection, but it's also going to be the most cumbersome and aggravating. Foam earplugs, if installed properly will be just fine. First aid kit. According to OSHA, a first aid kit should be kept up to date. Somebody should be in charge in the crew or the truck that has be sure that everything's in this first aid kit that's supposed to be. Be sure it's in with with a date, an acceptable date. And also, if you're working away from a vehicle using a chainsaw, then you must carry a first aid kit with you according to OSHA rules. And you also need to may be required to have more than one depending on the number of employees that's working away from the truck or vehicle. The employer shall provide first aid kits at each work site where trees are being cut, and the number of first aid kits and the content of each kit shall reflect the degree of isolation and the number of employees and the hazards reasonably anticipated at the work site. Starting the chainsaw, strict rules governing starting. Check the ground around the chainsaw to be sure it's clear. Hold firmly in place on the ground. Always engage the chain brake before cranking the saw. Grip the front handlebar with your left hand. Place your right foot in the rear trigger guard or kneel on the chainsaw and pull the starter handle. Start the saw at least 10 feet from refueling area. And saws weighing less than 15 pounds may be drop started. Drop starting saws over 15 pounds is permitted outside the bucket of an aerial lift only after ensuring that the area below the lift is clear. We don't want to drop start a saw when somebody be standing directly under us. Maybe we're close to the ground or close to the in the cradle or whatever. So definitely want to be sure we're far enough away and everybody's clear. This is a result of being too close to a running chainsaw. OSHA says we're supposed to be 10 foot away, and this is just an example of what could happen. People sawing too close together. Be sure that we keep a safe distance, and be sure, because the noise involved and hopefully ear protection involved, that we make contact, get close, make some kind of recognition that somebody's getting too close to us, so we know where everyone's at. Felling a tree is another dangerous part of our job. This is the green areas signify the safe areas to stand. If a tree's fallen notched correctly and the lean or wind or what have you that affects the felling of a tree is calculated correctly, the green areas should be the safe area. The danger areas, of course, is the back, completely behind. If there's a hard lean, then the tree could split out, barber chair, so to speak, and that piece that comes loose really dangerous. As some simple rules of, people using chainsaws, never cut a tree completely off the stump, and be sure that you have a path to exit in case something goes wrong. It's recommended that a quarter of the depth of the tree is the correct size for the notch. I'll have to admit this looks like one of my notches. Bigger is better. That's not the case. The black mark outlined in gold or yellow should be sufficient to notch for that particular cut on this tree. Here's another example of gives you a little better perspective of what a quarter of the way through a tree is. 45-degree cut slope on your angle, on your horizontal or vertical cut, and be sure that everything where the horizontal and vertical meets cleaned out and smooth. Operation of the chainsaw, you need to maintain the correct grip on the chainsaw. Use your thumb and fingers to encircle the handles. Maintain solid footing. Do not operate the chainsaw above your waist. Do not operate the chainsaw within 10 foot of another person. The picture of the young man's arm that we've seen earlier is a direct result of not being within, of staying 10 foot apart. Those guys were scattered through the right-of-way. There was more than that, those two guys in there. And it was, don't know if a guy had a slick spot, a little clear spot or whatever, but he ended up getting too close. And we've seen the results. So, really try to pay attention to that. Know where if you're cutting in line through a right-of-way, be sure you know where everybody's at all times. Keep your body out of the path of the bar and chain. The saw shall not be sent up or down while the engine is running. Be sure that chain brake's on, and especially if it's sent up, to somebody up on the hand line or in the bucket, be sure that the chain is, be sure it's not running, and also be sure chain brake is on and have everybody out of the way before it is started. Kickback is capable of exerting 450 inch-pounds of energy and can travel from the wood to your face 7 times faster than you can react to it. So it happens really fast. We've got another photograph here at the end of the program that's going to show just exactly how dangerous it can be. A lot of times we're out using the chainsaw at night, working trouble and storms. Limited sight. We've got trees that's fell. We've got trees that's limbs that's under stress, limbs that's bent back over themselves. We need to really take a hard look and and examine the best way to go about cutting trees. We should never use a chainsaw out by ourselves. I think it's an OSHA rule that says that if you're using a chainsaw, there needs to be somebody within a hollering distance or within visible sight of someone who is using a chainsaw. So that pretty much tells us that there's only one, that you can't go out and use a chainsaw by yourself. Cutting right away on storms is even more hazardous because of the pressure on the fallen trees. Also, one of the most dangerous things we will do is cutting trees off pin conductors. The process that we go through and the amount of time that we take and the safety precautions we put in, whether we're trying to tie it down, whether we're trying to put maybe the boom of a digger derrick or whatever, if we can hold that down, A lot of times that's not the case, but extreme caution, guys, is really, really important as far as cutting a tree off a pin conductor. I hope that we're taking our time and being sure and giving us cut us an escape route, as well as really examining the stress that the wire's on, the butt of the tree, where it comes from, which way the wire's going to snap back when the tree's cut. Just, good common sense. Don't get in a hurry and really investigate and be sure that that's something that we don't leave for chance, that we pretty well know what's going to happen on our next move. Like I say, I think that's one of the most dangerous things that we do, cutting trees off pin conductors. Prevention of kickback: you need to grip the chainsaw properly and firmly, using two hands. Keep your left elbow in the locked position. Stand to the left side of the chainsaw and not over top of the saw. Use the chain brake to stop rotation. Anytime you're going to pick a chainsaw up, anytime you're going to walk around to the other side of the tree, anytime you're going to walk from one tree to the next, I think some circles will give you a 50-foot radius. You need to use the chain brake. I think an excellent habit to get in to just roll your chain. Don't use your off hand or your trigger hand to push the chain off. Roll your wrist. That's exactly why a chain brake is located where it's at, is in case of kickback, or it's easy to flip and stop the chain. On my circles this month, delivering this meeting, I've had several people tell me of comment on injuries sustained by my chain that moves at idle. Of course, it's not supposed to do that, and if you do have a chain that does that, that's even all the more reason to use the chain brake to eliminate that possibility from happening. We've got a picture coming up next. It's due to kickback. It's probably not any worse, I have to say, than the young man that's got the arm. But that's an excellent picture of how a chainsaw does not just cut, how it just tears the flesh, and it's the statistics that we had at the beginning of the program of the average of 110 stitches and the vast amounts of money that it costs our company, ourself, our insurance companies, everything involved. That's just rehab, the whole thing. It just, to me, it makes just a whole lot more sense to be trained on a chainsaw. And that's something else that's need to touch on about the. It's up on the employer to realize that whoever's using a chainsaw can use one safely, has the knowledge to do so, understands the PPE, when it's supposed to be worn, how it's supposed to be worn. So, just turning a young man loose with a chainsaw right off the bat, there needs to be some kind of supervision. There needs to be some kind of visual evidence to observe someone to know that their level of experience with the chainsaw. So that's something else to keep in mind as well. A lot of us use a chainsaw a lot. A lot of us have been, but like I said earlier, some of these things we take for granted. Hopefully this program's a little reminder that we need to wear PPE. We need to have people close by. We need to be experienced. We need to read the manual. Just a lot of things that we need to stay on top of, and chainsaw use, because it's such a big part of our daily activities to build and maintain our power lines. So be careful and stay safe, and thank you for your attention.